Hi, this is a project that I did in C Sharp and using .NET and Blazor. And basically, it's a customized kind of dashboard for individuals. And it's kind of, I envision it as kind of like, here's the information you need to start your day. These are things that you will actually change what you do today, where you drive, your commute, things like that. So I'll give a brief summary of how it works. I'm going to give a little bit of a quick summary of the code, which there will be a link in the description to the GitHub if you want to see that in more detail. And then I'll show the data sources where all this information comes from, which is a combination of open APIs, private accounts, social media scraping, and public calendars and various sources like that. So just a brief summary of how this works. So first we have, obviously, you need to know the time, the upper right, then the local weather. So if I get up in the morning, for example, I want to know, what the weather is because I have to walk the dog and am I going to have to wear my winter coat or not? The next one is it's going to show me my Google Calendar and if I have any appointments today. The next one is going to tell me if today is garbage pickup or not, and it's going to tell me which kinds of garbage pickup, recycling, etc. Because we have a 2-week rotation which rotates. Down here, it's going to tell me if my kid's school bus is coming today or not, because we have a lot of snow days here. I'm in Ottawa, Ontario, so that's something I actually in the winter have to check every morning now. But hopefully, if I can use this, I can check everything at once. Next one is traffic, so it's going to tell me which streets, the streets I commonly use if I was commuting or driving. Are there any accidents or things that I would have to know to reroute? The next one is this is the public transit system, OT Transpo. So this is actually my wife's bus and her station that she takes every morning to work, and it tells the next 3 times that that bus is leaving. Next one is that if I do I have any messages, unread messages in my Gmail account? And the last one is not as important information, but it still might be something I decide to do. Next one is it's going to tell me 3 things that are new on Netflix, 3 movies that are new on Netflix today. It's going to tell me if there's a Raptors game tonight because I'm a big Raptors fan and who they're playing and what time it starts. And the next 2 is going to tell me if there are any birthdays coming up in a given period of time. So it could be 2 weeks or whatever I set it to. And if there are any Ontario holidays that I should be aware of coming up in the near future. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to briefly go and show how the code works, and I'll actually manipulate this a bit to show more information because, I mean, ideally, I want to see more X's on the screen because that basically means I can ignore that panel. I don't have to worry about it, right? So I envision this being like on my phone. So if you can imagine if it was shrunk down like this, I would open it up and I would just scroll down and I would say, okay, it's cold today. Don't worry about, you have no appointments. It's not garbage day. Kids school bus, no problem. No traffic accidents. Here's the next bus if I want to get that bus, bus 61. I don't have any new Gmail. Here's a couple of movies on Netflix. There's no Raptors game tonight. No birthdays coming up in the next 2 weeks. No holidays coming up in the next 2-3 weeks. And then I kind of have enough that I need to know for that day to get my day started. And if I have to do any actions based on the information I see here. Okay, so I'm going to jump over to the code. So basically, this is done in Visual Studio with C Sharp, .NET, and Blazor. So the way Blazor app works is basically you have your data models, you have your services, which are basically your API calls or your calls to get the data, wherever you get your data from, and then you have your pages, and your pages are where you view in the browser the information that you fetched, right, and where you place it. So I'll do weather first. So you can see here I have on the leftmost side is the model. So basically, you set the model up to just grab whatever data I want to keep from the API call. I don't want all of it, just what I need. I set that up here in my model. So basically, you can see here I'm going to get the description of the weather, and I get an icon for the description, and then I get the temperature, and then I get feels like temperature. So if there's wind chill or whatever. And so over here in the panel where I have the services, if I look up the local weather services here, you can see basically what it does is I had to register. I'll show the data sources after, but I had to register with my app with the API and get a key. So I read it in from a file, and then I just make a request, and I set the response type to be the local weather model, which I set up. So to map the what parts of the data I want. Then I just send for the data, and I get it back, and it's mapped to my model. And then over here, we can go to the page. So the page injects this weather service that we call the API with. And here we have our HTML, which displays it based on what we get. And here at the bottom is this code section, which is actually what calls the service and puts it into a local variable, and then that's what we display above. And what I also did for this one was, which I can show now, is I set up a kind of a system where if the description is a quote unquote bad weather, it'll change the display to be red, so it's more, so I can know right away that I have bad weather to account for today. So for example, if we went back to the screen, we can see that the weather here is scattered clouds, which is not in my category of bad weather. But if I went back here and added that line, so if I said bad weather, add in scattered clouds, and I stopped the application and started again. Should start up. Here we go. Bit slow starting here. Okay. Oh, broken clouds. Okay, never mind. Let's go back and try that again. So I'll close this. Go back here. So not scattered clouds, broken clouds. So if we look for broken clouds, start it up again. Okay, so now you can see that the weather here is in red text. So I guess basically what I could do is any panel I want, if I have some information that I want to really stand out, if I'm browsing for in the morning, then I could set it to give me like red text or whatever, which was kind of the opposite of the X here, which the X tells me to ignore it, right? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually fill out the rest of these fields by manipulating the data over the sources where I get it from, and so we can see. So for example, the Google Calendar right now says I have no appointments. So if we look back at the Google Calendar service, so here it is. So Google Calendar, basically you set up your Google credentials. All of this is you can find this on the Google's website, how to set up your app to call the API for Google's. And then I call my calendar here in the service, and you can see it's my primary calendar. So right now is looking for today's date, and there's nothing in my calendar for today, and it's only looking for a max time of today. So it's just only today. So if there's nothing in my calendar right now, so if I actually open my Google Calendar, so I can probably go here and open my calendar, and so if I go in for today's date, which is the 20th here, and add an event, I'll say tests for demo, and I'll say the time is 10 to 10:30 and save it. Now if we go back to here and refresh it, so here we see test for demo. So that calls my Google Calendar with the updated information, and I can see it. So the garbage pickup, what you see here, is actually a public calendar given to us by the city of Ottawa, where I live. So here's where the data, the weather comes from, open weather map. I'll put lists of these resources in the description as well if anyone is interested in doing something similar to this. And here you can see this is the API for the weather, and it gives you the kind of the data for API response, and that's where I base my model of what I display from. So for the garbage collection, I can see here, this is the City of Ottawa's website, and they actually have the garbage collection calendar, which changes week to week according to what they pick up. And you can just get the calendar and download it directly to my own calendar. And then what I do is I basically go in, and you can see it has my address here. And if I go to the settings and down, I can get the calendar ID, and I can just call the calendar same as I called my personal calendar, except I'm calling this one instead. And I'm checking if there is garbage pickup today or not. So if I went into my garbage calendar instead of my personal one, this one, and I look down. So if I say right now, I was only looking 2 days in advance, right? So if I got rid of this line and commented this out, so now it's actually looking for today's date, because today is garbage day. And I stopped the application and I ran it again. So you can see here it says black bin, green bin, and yard trimming. So I made this one in red as well, because if I'm reading this today, because today is actually our day, it's already too late because they come in the morning. So basically what I do with this one is I check the day before the garbage day, and I display it in black. And if it's the day of, I put it in bold and red, because that means hurry up and get out, put your garbage out, because if not, you're going to miss it. So the school bus one is a bit different in that there's no API or calendar, and this is something that now what I do is I check the actual, there's a Twitter account that I check in the mornings called Ottawa School Bus, and they'll tweet in the morning if the buses are canceled or not. So that's the most reliable source I have right now. So what I did was you can go set up an API to call Twitter's API. You can set up your app to call Twitter's API, register with them, you get a token, so you can access Twitter by the names of the handles. So you can see right now in the application it says there's no problem with the school buses. I mean, there's no school buses now for last month because of the coronavirus, but in general, they post something very early in the morning because the school bus comes for my kids at 7:20 a.m. So so what I can do is I can go into the code again, and I can look for the school bus service. And what I'm going to do here is, so here it just sets up your HTTP client. I get my token from a file. I got my token already set up from before. I set up a school bus model, the data I want to get from the Twitter API, and then I make my HTTP requests. So right now you can see this is the name of the Twitter account I'm trying to get the information from. And right now I'm only looking for one tweet, so that's the most recent tweet. And what I'm doing on the page, which uses that data, so if I look at the school bus page, I'm actually looking for if this tweet contains the word cancel, because it always does. It always says canceled or some version of cancel. So if that tweet knows cancel, I'm going to see that on my app, right? So so the most recent tweet does not have that. So but what I could do is if I look for the most recent 5 tweets, for example, and run it again, Then I can see here, you can see here that it said on March 13th, there was a notice, transportation is canceled to all schools and programs from March until April due to COVID-19. So the word canceled was in the tweet, and therefore I see it on my dashboard. Similarly, traffic, it's the same one, is that there's no, the best way to check if there's traffic on the streets that I use commonly is Twitter, but instead of having school bus, which is one account, traffic, there's actually multiple accounts that I check. So the ones that I check are there's one called Ottawa Traffic, which is run by the city. There's one called CBC Ottawa Traffic, and there's one called 1310. So what I do in my code is actually I scan all three and I combine them, and then I look for the roads, most common roads. So right now you can see in my app it said there was no problem. So what that means is the streets I had put in there's no problem on those streets. And I think I was only looking at the top tweet just for now, just to try it out. So if we looked at those ones, we can pick a street. So this one here has the street Huntmar on the top tweet. There's no street in that top one, and this one has 417. Okay, 417 is a good one because that's actually one of the ones that's our main highway through the city that I use often. So if I went into my traffic page, and so here I'm looking for which streets I'm looking for. So I had Carling and Queensway that I was looking for in the tweets, but if I change Queensway to 417, which they are actually the same, there's two names for the same one, 417, and save that, and ran it again. What should happen now is it should find that street name in one of the tweets from the three streams that I check, and it should show me that tweet. Yeah, so we can see here that under traffic, Ottawa eastbound Highway 17 Anderson Road collision, Ottawa traffic. So you can imagine if I was going to go on the 417 and then it showed the intersection or an exit that I passed often, then I would know that. So now you can see our whole app is kind of filling in. I mean, on a given day, I would hope that there wouldn't be even half filled in because that means there's too much going on that I have to be aware of. The OC Transpo one here is from an API that the city, the OC Transpo, which is our public transit, runs. So if you go here for developers, OC Transpo, they have an open API. You register your application, you get an API key, you can call the API, and then there's here they'll show you how to call it, what parameters you need to call it with, and then I get a JSON response, and I parse it, and right now I'm just looking for a particular bus and particular stops and when the next three ones are coming. So I don't actually take public transit, but my wife does every morning. So I could imagine if I did, I would check this and say, okay, my next bus comes in 37 minutes or whatever. So that would be very useful as well. So if I go back here, so my Gmail says I don't have any mail currently from today. So this is what I wanted for Gmail is I want to know just on-read messages from today. So if I look at my Gmail service, you can kind of see same thing with anything with Google account. You got to get you set it up, you get your credentials. Here it's when you get my credentials, and then you call the service, which is get Gmail data is what I called it. So, but basically you're just making a request to get information. And so you can see here the query I'm looking for is category is my primary inbox. I'm looking for on read, and I'm looking for newer than 1 day. So this is just on read messages from today. But if I commented that out and put it instead to be on read messages from the last 14 days, I should see something now in that box. So basically what that's going to tell me is how many on-read messages are in my primary inbox for the last 2 weeks instead of just today. Because for today I didn't have any showing, so there's an X in that box. And now you can see there's one new on-read message from the last 2 days. So the next flex one down here is it's not the official API, but it is a unofficial API, and it's called UNOGS, and you can get a key here if you go under Rapid API for that one, and you can register and get a key. And it even shows you down here how to. I was doing it in C#, and it'll even give you your code of how to call and get information. And if you go to here, which is the website where they show that data, you can go under your country. So if I go under Canada and see new videos in the last 7 days, it'll show me, okay, so Champion Heart, New Money, and Moms at War. That's what it's showing for the recent 3. So if I went to my app, I should see Champion Heart, New Money, and Moms at War. So basically it just fetched 3. I just fetched 3 movies from that. And in the code for that one, you can actually see that for the Netflix one is you can look for specifically. So for example, I was looking at the movie type. The item type is called movie. Sometimes it's called series, and you can also look by release date. So if you want to look just for series, TV series released in 2020, you could search for that. And if there's any there in the last 7 days, that's what you would see. So you could be more specific with that one if you wanted to. Okay, so Raptors game. So Raptors game 1 is a public calendar. So if you actually go to your Google Calendar, so there's no Raptors games tonight, or the season is over. I mean, obviously there's no games for the last month and a half because of the coronavirus, but the public calendar exists still, and it's actually quite easy to find because if you go to into your calendars under add calendar. So if you're in your regular Google Calendar and you wanted to add a calendar, you can go to settings up here. You can say add calendar and go to browse calendars of interest. And there's a sports one. And you say basketball, National Basketball Association here. And then I go down and I get, bang, the Raptors, right? So I already have it in here and I can see it over here. So again, if I went to this calendar, I can see what the ID is, and then I call it. So if I go into my code now and kind of change it a bit to look for, so if I go into my Raptors service, which calls the calendar, right now I'm just looking for is there any games today, right? Just today alone. But if I change that, so what I'll do is I'll say, I will take out the min and max time, and I'll say, I'll look for the last 30 days previous today, and it'll just find the first one. And it'll tell me what game it is and what time it starts. So if there was a day-to-day thing, it would be great because I could just say, oh, there's a game on tonight at 7:30. And if it's a team that I like, then I would probably watch that game, as opposed to going to the ESPN app or whatever. Like you can already see, I would go to Twitter to get information about traffic, Twitter for the bus. I would go to ESPN to see about games. So you can see here the Raptors game. They were playing the Nuggets at 6 p.m. So that's a game I would watch. I like both those teams. And so that was something I would have done. So now we're almost got it filled in. So the last 2, birthdays and holidays, are also calendars. The birthdays calendar actually comes from your Google contacts. So if you have the birthday information in your Google Contacts, what this does, it gives me kind of a countdown to like 7 days until this person's birthday or whatever. I have it set up now to look for like a couple weeks, but I can change that as well. So if I go into my service for birthdays, which is a Google Calendar, so you can see here it actually says address book contacts. So that's where it gets the information from. So right now I'm just looking for today, and I'm only looking for 14 days ahead of today. So the next 2 weeks. So if I actually take out the max time, state. Okay, yeah, so so that would be get rid of the max time. And actually, I'll do the same thing with the holidays. So the holidays one, so we don't have to wait for the load again. The holidays one is a Ontario provincial holidays, which I would have off. So in the same way, I could check that Ontario publishes their office holidays here, and I just go to the website and I just copy the URL. And then if you go to the calendar, you can actually put a URL of a calendar, and that also adds it. So I can see over here, Ontario holidays, I get the ID for that. So if I go into my holidays, because I was checking that also for a certain time frame. So if I look for my holidays now, so I was looking for 2 weeks. So what I'll do is I'll also get rid of the max for that. Okay. Okay, so we start that. What I should do now, the last 2 panels should be full, and they should give me a countdown onto when the next birthday is, and who it is, and when the next holiday is, and what that holiday is. Bum, bum, bum. It's a bit slower than normal here for some reason. Okay, so now we can see it's full. So it's 38 days until Lorraine Mills' birthday. That's my mother-in-law. And 28 days until Victoria Day, which is the next Ontario holiday that we have off. So now you can see I have completely full. So if this was a day I was scrolling, that would be a busy day for me, I guess. With lots of stuff going on. I would first of all I would know that if this is red, it's gonna be bad weather. When I walk the dog, I'm gonna get wet or cold. I know I have some appointments today. I know it's garbage day, and then this is red, so that means I'm already forgot to put it out last night, so I better hurry up and get it out today. I know my kid's school bus is canceled. I know that there's traffic. There's an accident on a road that I often travel on. I know the next times that my bus is leaving, if I was taking the bus, public transit bus, I know the next 3 times I can catch that bus. I know I have some messages that I haven't read yet. I hear some new stuff on Netflix if I want to watch it. There's a Raptors game tonight if I want to watch that. And I don't really have to worry about birthdays, not one to another over a month, but if that was closer, I could say, oh, 7 days is his birthday, I forgot, I got to get a gift or a card or email them. And then I got to know, oh, I forgot this holiday was coming up, it's coming soon. So plan for that. So that's how this dashboard works. And so I'll have links in the description if anyone is interested in doing something similar themselves. Thanks.